welcome into a brand new edition of the Lockdown Corner podcast. But the Elf, what's your favorite podcast? We already know what it is. It's the Lockdown Corner. Thank you for joining us this evening. I am right now doing a little solo show. Dustin will be in a minute. We're running a little late with our gambling show, so I'm just going to start the podcast monologuing. So we're just going to get right into it. Look, Packers drop one in London, a supposed home game, neutral site field. Giants win 27-22. There were a couple takeaways from this game that I want to start with. First of all, this is a really, really good first half team that we have in Green Bay. Their first half numbers are the best with anybody. They really are. They are top 10 in both offensive and defensive DVOA. Their second half numbers, they go from being top 10 in both to being bottom half in both. I believe they're 18th in offensive DVOA in the second half and 22nd in defense. And Dustin is with me now, who will join in. Anyway, Dustin, I'm sure you heard me, but in the event that you did not, really good first half team this team is. Here's the problem. Here's my biggest problem with what happened. And I know we're kind of doing this as a really hodgepodge show tonight, and that's what it's going to be. But, I mean, that is what it is. We're going to talk about the Packer game. We're going to look ahead at the Jets. And then, it's going to be a shorter one today. Anyway, the biggest problem I had with this game, at halftime, they were up 20-10 at halftime. And the offense looked really, really good. Aaron Jones was averaging damn near 5 to 6 yards a carry. Really efficient, really good. Second half, totally went away from it. They only had 20 carries in the ball game. They only rushed the ball 20 times. Aaron Rodgers, on the other hand, threw 39. And I think offensively, the biggest example of an indictment of this offense right now, Giants tie the game up. It is now 2020. Okay. Packers get the ball back. First and 10 at the 25. Aaron Rodgers, long ball, incomplete. Second and 10, long ball, incomplete. Now it's third and 10. You have not moved an inch. Okay. And then I'm pretty sure it was some little dump off pass that didn't go anywhere either. I don't understand. You needed to score there to get control of the game back. You were lost all momentum and you gave it right back to them. 3 and out. I think they were on the field for like 10 game seconds. Something right now with this team isn't clicking. I don't know if it's Aaron Rodgers not trusting his receivers. I don't know if it's Matt LaFleur not trusting, offensively, I should say, not trusting what he sees. They don't seem to want to adjust. And I guess, Dustin, let's talk about the offensive side first. We could talk about the defensive side in a little bit. But offensively, that's just what I saw. What did you see in this game specifically? We watched this game together, so I know you got takes. But offensively, what did you think from what you saw in this game?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't anything different than what I alluded to last week. You know, I said, I'm like, where's the innovation in our team right now? Like, where is our innovation second half saying, okay, here's what they're doing. Here's X, Y, and Z, our game plan to negate what they're trying to do. And it just doesn't seem like it's happening. Like, it's just like you said with those numbers, like something's clearly not happening that should be happening. There's no reason a top 10 team on both sides of the ball, second half just completely falls apart. Like, it's just like it cannot happen. And like, you cannot win NFL games if you did not close out a game. Like, it's just like, granted, that sounds stupid, but like, it's the truth. Like, you need to close out games. Closing out games is the easily most important part of any football game, is closing it out. You can start hot all you want, but if you don't stay hot, you're going to lose a game. And that just kind of seems like a common theme where, as you mentioned, when we were on the ball, you said 18 or 10 times in the second half, something along those lines.
I don't know what the numbers were in the second half. I know they ran the ball 20 times total in the game, which is
exactly. It's terrible. Like, it's terrible. So you can say 10 each side. That's just not enough. With two of arguably the best backs in the league, you can say probably one of the best dynamic duo backs in the league. Why are you not giving them the ball 30 plus times?
Yep.
Like, there's no excuse for that at all. Again, like, as you alluded to, like that one series, as you said, game's tied. Make a drive. Like, get a drive going. On 1st and 10, start with a run. Like, I get it. Some teams, they get a first down, and they like to take a shot. I understand that you may like to take a shot, but you need to get that first down to take that shot. You can't just go 1, 2, 3 throws and be done. Like that's not going to work because then you give the ball right back to him. Your defense may still be tired coming off that possession, saying, "Oh shit! Like now we got to go back out and make a stop and do this." Like it's very hard on a team, especially a defense, to say, "Oh, we got to stop. Okay, we're gonna go back and score and get the lead." When it's 3-0, they're like, "Oh shit! Like we have to go and play again." Like on the defensive side, that makes it hard for them as well. Where if you just go 3-0, like it makes their job harder. So like at the same time, I'm not excusing any of the defensive mishaps on the offense because the defense did play bad second half, but like it kind of started with the offense playing bad, just bad decisions, bad calls, bad everything.
Yeah. And here's the other thing I want to say. My biggest problem right now is I don't think our quarterback is playing the standards. Now, granted, part of it's not his fault. He's just set these standards for himself incredibly high. He's back-to-back MVP in his late 30s. That's ridiculous, especially after a few years where he looked like he was toast. Like, obviously, we're all expecting these massive things from him. He's not really running the offense right now. And the biggest example I can give, I'm going to say very last play, not the Hail Mary that he didn't even get off, which is funny in its own right. But you and I both, we watched the game together. It's 4th and 2. They did not run the ball. They could have ran the ball. They had options here. And you and I looked at each other and said, "Oh, this is going to Lazard, back shoulder fade." We knew it. And what was so hilarious about this is that Rodgers looked to his right, looked to his left. Lazard was on his right. He looked back to his right, looked at the center, tugged his shoulder, his right shoulder in the direction of Lazard. The entire Giants' right side of the defense pointed at Lazard. Everybody in the stadium, except for the British people that probably don't watch a lot of football, everybody knew exactly where that ball was going, and it got knocked down. Back-to-back knockdown passes. They were averaging 5 yards a carry. Throw Dillon there, and you might at least get close and make it questionable. I mean, it just some of the little stuff like that, it's just I don't really know what they're doing offensively. I don't know if it's a trust thing or if it's Rodgers calling stuff at the line, and obviously we don't really know that. We can speculate, yes. But the thing that worries me, so we are now, this is week 6. We're playing the Jets at home. This isn't a cupcake game going on right now. This is going to be a really tough game at home for them, which is crazy when we're talking about the Jets, but it's true. Let's just to recap. Minnesota, they get their asses beat, okay? 23-7, they were never really in that game. And it looked horrendous. We came on that next week and just berated them. They were terrible. Week 2, they start to look a little better. They play, now granted, it's the Bears at home. We all know the recent history of Packers-Bears. Okay, so 1-1 seems about right. They go to Tampa. They could have lost that game easily and probably should have. They squeak one out. But you could argue that, okay, they should be 1-2. Against the Patriots at home and Bailey Zappi. They go to overtime. You could argue they should have lost that game. At one point, our group text between the three of us, I thought they were. They squeaked that one out. Okay, they could easily be 1-3. And now they lost to the Giants. 1-4. You can make the argument that this is a 1-4 football team right now. And I know that, well, the record says what you are. So the record says they're 3-2, but this could easily be a 1-4 football team, and that's got to be alarming. This reminds me of the 2019 Packers where they were 13-3, but we all kind of knew they were fraudulent. They weren't that good, and then they got just destroyed in the NFC Championship game in San Francisco. But it just, there's a lot of I'm having a lot of flashbacks to that because this was supposed to be their cupcake schedule. They're supposed to beat the Giants, who turned out, Giants are pretty good, especially when Daniel Jones played well like he did on Sunday. The Jets, well, that should be a cupcake. And Washington, which they're playing right now, and Lord knows how that disgusting game is going to go. But then they got at Buffalo. That's going to be a tough game. At Detroit, that's going to be a tough game. At home against Dallas, that's not going to be a cakewalk. At home against Tennessee, Tennessee's not quite as bad as I thought, but they're not where they were last year. But that's not a cupcake game. At Philly, that looks like a definite loss right now. And at Chicago, and then they got I mean, Rams at Dolphins on Christmas Day, Minnesota, Detroit. It doesn't get easy. If there's a get-right game left, it's one of these next two games. And even next week's on the road in Washington. That could be weird. I'm already expecting a weird spread for that game. If this team doesn't get right this week, and I don't know that they will. We just had the gambling show. I have the Jets to cover here. I don't know why they're favored by a touchdown and a half against anybody. So if they get right, it's going to be this week. If they don't get right this week, huge, huge, huge red flags. And at that point, you might as well just write off the season.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of concerns right now for this team. Like I said, both offensively and defensively. I'm just sick of the bullshit excuse already of, oh, we have the back-to-back MVP. It takes 11 guys on each side to win the game, and plus special teams. Like that's what it takes to be a good football team. Like it doesn't rely on just Rodgers. And I hate the bullshit excuse of, oh, we have the back MVP. He's 38 years old, like high 30s, right? Mid to high 30s.
Yeah, he might even be 39 this year, or just 39. Yeah,
he's old. Like eventually, his time is going to come to the end. What are we going to do after him? That's my question. Like we can't just keep making this excuse of, oh, we have him. Well, he's old. He's clearly starting to go downhill. Like it's clearly not the same anymore. Like we need to have an answer beyond Rodgers. Like it doesn't seem like we have an answer because Rodgers can't do what he used to do. He can't. Like it is what it is. Hey, people get old and they start going downhill. Like it happens. But like, when are we going to have an answer saying, here's our identity. Here is where we win football games. I think that's in the run, and that's where I think 20 carries is definitely not enough. I think this next coming week against a fairly tough Jets defense,
yep.
I think they need to prove this is our identity. This is how we're going to win football games. I think they just need to do it and say, here's how we're going to win. Let the league know it. Here's how we're going to win. We're going to stick to it. And that's where I think you really make a team start to win. That's when you see some morale start to work. Right now, there's no morale. Like you can just tell there's no morale in this team, like at all.
No,
like,
Giant Alexander even had mentioned, he didn't come out and say, well, he basically said, well, if we lose to the Jets, then we'll have problems. But just the mentality of, well, if we lose, and Rodgers came out and said we can't be thinking like that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, there's no morale in this team. Like you need to build that through trusting each other and through that chemistry. Like I get it. This is a young football team, probably the youngest we've had in a long time. But like you got to make it work. Like these are all professional athletes. Like you chose these guys because you thought they would win games. Well, as a coaching staff, you need to figure it out. Like when we said, when it comes to second half, like make adjustments. Like you know what these guys are doing, so do something. Like it's simple answers of like on the one play where I can't remember if it was Saquon or Slayton, whoever it was, came right across the middle, wide open because of three linebackers. Yeah, three linebackers were on the right side of the field, or for the offense on the right side of the field, our left. That can't happen. Like those miscommunications cannot happen. Like if you're going to play zone defense, you need to understand as young players and as coaches, like you need to teach these guys, pass it off. Like if you see this guy be like, hey, he's coming across the middle, like there's no excuse for a professional team to blow a coverage that bad. Like, and the problem is it's happened week 1. We saw Jefferson torch us because he just went across the middle. No one talked. Like I just have questions about the coaching and the communication use in this team. Like it seems like there's no communication.
No, I'm with you, and we're there. So let's talk about the defense here. Yeah, they are dead last in all the stats about crossing routes over the middle. They're dead last, which part of that is Jefferson had 200 yards in the first half of week 1, but also even Darius Slayton was lighting them up. And I'm not screaming for Joe Barry. He's got to go man to man. I'm not screaming for that because I know what they are doing in the first half. It's working. The numbers bear that out. But I think the biggest problem, I said it last week, and I'll say it again this week, your first 2 draft picks for this year, and this leads into something I'm going to say next, but were 2 for your front 7. Quay Walker, side to side, really good. Outstanding. He'll chase people down. He's incredible. He's a freak athlete. In fact, this last weekend, Saquon on a real wheel route, he went step for step with him for like 40 yards. That's Saquon Barkley we're talking about, who's fully healthy and in his prime. That was incredible stuff. And Devontae Wyatt can't see the field. In fact, I'm pretty sure he was a healthy scratch last week. It's just that really hurts, especially this is the other thing I have too. This is a win now team. Offensively, look, I really like their young guys. I know Christian Watson's had a pretty rough start with all the injuries and stuff. I get all that, but I really like their young receivers. But the problem is young receivers take time. It took Davante Adams 3-4 years before he became Davante Adams. They're in a win now mode right now. If you want to lean towards these younger guys, I get it. But then someone needs to inform 12 that he's probably no longer welcome here because the timelines don't match up. These younger guys that they drafted, not that they can't contribute right now, but those guys, by the time they figure it out, they're going to be Jordan Love's guys. They're not going to be Aaron Rodgers guys, which is, we brought in Sammy Watkins. Well, you kind of know what you're getting with Sammy Watkins. He's going to miss at least 8 games, at least, if not more. He's already on the IR. It took 3 weeks. Cobb, look, I credit Randall Cobb. I thought was washed last year. He's got some juice this year, so I'm fine. He's been awesome. Lazard has been Lazard, but the problem is Lazard's our number one. Well, he's a guy who really only he never maxes out at like 9 to 10 catches a game. Devontae could do that for you. That's not how Lazard's built. He's basically a tight end, a thin tight end that can't really play tight end. Or he's too fast to play tight end, if that makes any sense. Like he's too lean. You know what I'm trying to say. This team has a lot of question marks right now. We're 5 weeks. We've played 5 games. We have a fairly decent sample size. And I just don't think the timelines for right now, and who knows, maybe this week they figure it out and then boom, 7 straight wins or something crazy and we're back in business. They've done that before and none of us would be like, oh, okay. None of us would be shocked by that. We'd be, okay, this is what this team is supposed to be. And Lord knows they're probably going to drop a dumb one yet. So just brace yourself, Packer fans, because especially this team, they're going to drop a dumb one. I mean, they dropped one already. They could have lost to New England. That would have been a really dumb loss. I'm looking at Detroit, November 6th. That's going to be a really dumb loss. I just know it in my heart. I don't know if the timelines are matching up. And I think if this is a win now team, I think this falls in the GM too. I know that the defense, and I haven't even talked about the defense yet. And you're right. I don't know that I can say much else about the defense. There's a lot of communication issues right now, which you're going to have that with young players, but this secondary's been there. Darnell Savage has been terrible. Adrian Amos has been missing tackles. Devondre Campbell doesn't have quite the same juice that he had last year. So it's one thing after another with this team. And I'm starting to worry that the timelines, this team that they have built is a really young team, a really interesting team, but a really young team. But I just don't know that that matches up with 12. And this defense has been disappointing so far. I guess I'm just going to ask you the question. And I say this sincerely. I'm not saying this because I'm angry, because I'm really not angry. I'm over it. We know what this team kind of is at this point. A kind of stubborn passing offense when their strength is running. I just want to ask you the question. Are we sure that Jordan Love couldn't run this offense the same way it's being run now? And by that, I mean, I'm not talking about stats, but effectiveness-wise, I mean, I feel the problem I'm having in my heart is that I feel like Jordan Love could do the same thing that Aaron Rodgers is doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not totally convinced. You could easily convince me into that being true, just because like we're making everything easy. Like, this should be a pretty simple offense where you're running simple RPOs, where you bring in Dillon and Jones and you run RPOs. So like again, I know I said this on Sunday to you, Alex, but the announcers this past week were terrible. Like they talked about RPOs and like, oh, like that was a run attached to an RPO. It's like, no, an RPO is literally called run pass option. Like that is what RPO stands for. That means you have a run and a pass in the same play. So like you have both options. So pretty much you're sticking the ball out and you're looking at a linebacker, and if he commits, you're throwing the ball out. And if he commits to the receiver, you're giving the ball. That's the whole basis of our RPO. And that's what we do all the time when we send Jones in the motion back around. It's to see what those linebackers are doing. If they follow him, ball goes. If the linebackers don't follow him, ball goes out to Jones. Very simple concept. But anyways, it should be a simple offense where you're running RPOs, you're trying to get numbers. That's all it is. But it seems like Rodgers is making things difficult again, where he's checking plays when you don't need to. Run the offense, run RPOs like they work. It's simple because it's all numbers. If you have the numbers, throw it. If you have the numbers on the run it. Like it's very simple, but he's just making it complicated where he's got to check, he's got to make the big pass. Like I don't see what running a simple offense is like. What's wrong with that? Like even in the NFL, like again, it's football is 100% a numbers game and always will be and always has. Nothing will ever change. If you have numbers, use it. Like it's simple as that. And I think Love can easily read or tell numbers. So like you can easily run this offense.
Well, and I think the reason I asked the question is because the last play of the game, if you watch it back, Rodgers had his mindset before they even snapped the ball. And obviously, we don't have to dive into that. But if you look at how the play developed, he had Romeo Doubs wide open in the flat. They could have just picked it up that way. Even if you don't score there, you still get the first down, 4 more chances. He doesn't seem to be running the offense because there are guys open. So whatever you think about LaFleur and this is LaFleur's fault. I mean, look, he's somewhat responsible because he's the captain of the ship, right? But there are guys open. There's scheming guys open. And for whatever reason, our Hall of Fame quarterback is just not playing up to his standards. And, well, how many times have I had 2 bad halves? Well, that may be true, but you're only having 1 good half per game. That's a problem, especially this week. This Jets team is frisky. They put up 40 points last week on a Dolphins team. Whatever you think of the quarterback situation in Miami, that defense was healthy, and they put up 40. I mean, it's going to be tough this week, and I know that they're 7.5-point favorites, and if you watched the gambling show earlier, I'm all over the Jets here. As until they prove it to me, this Packers team should not be favored by a touchdown over anybody. And yes, it's a get-right spot. It's a bounce-back spot. I get all the angles. But their quarterback doesn't want to seem to run the offense. And the best line I heard all week, and I'm going to just keep repeating it, and credit to Locked On Packers, Peter Bukowski, for pointing this out. Do you remember that there's tons of footage of this, but Mike Holmgren always used to ask Brett Favre, hey, no more rocket balls, please? Because he would just try and fire it into these tight windows. Hey, no more rocket balls. Can somebody please tell Aaron Rodgers, hey, no more hero balls, please? Because we already talked about he took 3 deep shots when they needed to score. And look, I'm just as frustrated as anybody. And I asked the Jordan Love question for a couple of reasons. One is also the first thing that goes when a quarterback starts to age is his deep ball. And his deep ball, meaning 12's deep ball this year, hasn't been very good. I don't know what the numbers are exactly, but at one point he was like 7 for 22 of passes over 20 yards. It's not very good. There's a lot. I guess my only analysis from this game is just be on top of things. Keep an eye on it. If it's a close game this week or they lose this week, sound the alarms, because then we're in full-on panic mode. Because these next 2 games, they should have easy wins. They should be 5-2 at the end of the next 2 games, and I just don't have the confidence that they're gonna.
Yeah, I don't have much to elaborate. I think kind of hit it there. I really did.
Yeah,
you really did. Excuse me.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I guess I don't really know what else to say. And look, I know we're kind of doing a shorter podcast tonight. We're at about the 25-minute mark. Is there anything else you really want to talk about? Otherwise, I mean, I'm good just like that. I know we're having an on-air meeting, but honestly, I think everyone's just kind of frustrated, and I'm not Packered out by any means, but I'm just kind of to the point where I'm like, we know what this team is. We know where they're struggling. So I guess, is there anything you want to touch on? Otherwise, we could probably call it a night and go enjoy the Thursday night football games, not the NFL one, because that one is hot and trash. I refuse to watch. I will be watching Baylor, West Virginia, or Survivor with my girlfriend when I sign off. But
Bears are driving right now. They are driving.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Fantastic. You cannot. I was debating betting on this game, and it was a pick 'em when I went to bet on it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stay as far away from this thing as I possibly can. I was probably leaning Bears, but I didn't feel great about it. And I'm like, this just feels like me throwing away money.
Yeah, it would have been a toss-up for me. I would have stayed away from it too, but you never know.
Yeah. I was
But
thinking maybe a tease because I was going to tease them with West Virginia. And West Virginia right now is losing 24-17, but I mean, yeah, doesn't matter. Anyway, anything else you want to add on NFL or just the Packers in general?
Packers need to find, like I said, Packers need to find their identity. That's the biggest thing for them. If
That's
they
actually,
can't, yeah,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
if they can't do that in the next 2 weeks, it's full panic mode.
Okay. Yeah. And I think the frustrating thing, and this is where we'll end the show tonight. I think the frustrating thing for me is everybody and their brother knows their identity. They have really defensively, you have really good corners. I get you were a zone, you were built to play zone. I don't necessarily buy into that because I think they played decent amount of man last year. And the defense last year, pretty good. They were pretty good last year. Offensively, just run the ball more. Be more balanced. I don't care that you throw it 40 times a game, but then you better run the ball 40 times a game or somewhere close to that. Not 40 times throwing 20 rushing when your best player is number 33. Look, I know Aaron Rodgers is the back-to-back MVP. I get all of that. But right now, today, Aaron Jones is your most important player. He is your best player. You need to get him the ball more. That would be my advice. And just, if he pops off the screen and he's got the ball, he's averaging like 5 yards a carry, especially in the last game. It's just, yeah. I think the frustrating thing for fans is we know what they can do because we've seen it in flashes. There's just no consistency. And that comes with coaching. That comes with communication. And, I mean, we're to the point now where put up or shut up. You can't figure it out these next 2 weeks. Yeah, it's going to be full-on panic mode. But, all right, that will do it for the Lockdown Corner podcast for this week. We will be back next week to recap the Jets game and what is hopefully a win and talk about the Washington Commanders game coming up on the 23rd of October. Follow us on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Lots of good stuff going on there. Obviously, subscribe to our YouTube page. That is where you find this and the Lockdown Gambling Show, which the Lockdown Gambling Show this week was straight fire, if I say so for myself. So make sure you check that out as well. We'll win you some money. Yeah, that's going to do it for us. So disappointing trip to London, but they're at home this week against what should be a cupcake opponent. We shall see. Enjoy the games. Follow us on socials. We will see you next week. Good night, everybody.